Hey there. Thanks for joining me for my review of Friends Season 1, Episode 6. In my ongoing Friends review every episode of the series, this one is called The One with the Butt. And of course, we'll find out why during the review. This episode begins with the gang at a play, and they're looking at this playbill, and Rachel's all excited and saying, "Oh, look, Joey's picture." And Chandler's like, "You can always tell people that's never been to Joey's plays. They're excited. They're not scared." He's making jokes. It's very funny. Play starts. It's hilarious. I'm not going to give too much away, but Joey sings, and he sings in a German accent. You need to watch it to find out why and all that. Definitely a great opening to the show. Then we get the credits, and we're back at the playhouse. The play is ended. Everybody's clapping. Joey leaves the stage, and they're like, "Oh my God, that was awful," pretty much. I mean, they're all like, "Oh boy." And then Chandler sees this pretty woman, and he's trying to tell Ross to look at her, but he's, doing like the 10 o'clock, and Ross is like, "What? I thought it was like 8." He's like, "No, the pretty girl at 8, 9, 10 o'clock gets Ross to look," so it's kind of funny. But then he's scared to go talk to her, and they're all like telling him funny ways, kind of pumping him up to go talk to her. Of course, after Ross is like, "You could never get a girl like her in a million years," blah, blah, blah. Just some funny stuff. So he's like, "Okay, I'll go over." It's funny, he's awkward. But he talks to her, and then he just ends up blurting out, "We should go out sometime." Then we cut to where the gang's standing. Joey comes out, and they're like, faking like the play was good, like they're happy for him and stuff. Then Chandler runs over excitedly, going, "She said yes." Meaning she said yes to the date, and then he looks at Joey's like, "Terrible play, man, awful." And then he keeps telling about the girl. He's like, her name's Aurora, and talking her up. He's excited, and then he reaches his pocket. He's like, "Hey, the usher gave me this for you. A talent agent left a card for Joey." And they're like, "Based on this play?" Pretty funny. We cut to the coffee shop. We got Phoebe, Monica, and Ross. Chandler comes in. And like as soon as he comes in, he's like, "I've been here 3 seconds and you didn't ask me about my date." So he's obviously excited to tell him about the date. And so they're like, "How'd it go?" And he starts telling them it was great, great. And then it starts flashing back to the date. Then it'll flash to current time. So, like, he'll say something, it'll show the date. So it shows him and her talking. They're having a good time, getting along. She's got these amazing stories. Her name's Aurora. She's, not from here. So she had to, like, escape a war torn country or something crazy. But as it's cutting back and forth, it shows her, she like, and then we did this. He goes, "We? Who's we?" And she's like, "Me and my husband." And he's like, "So you're divorced?" She's like, "No." He's like, "Widowed? Hopefully." She's like, "No." So you find out she's still married. And of course, the whole gang goes, "Oh." And then he's like, it cuts back to the date, and he's like, "Well, if," and then, he's like, "Well, what will your husband think of us being here?" And, he says something funny. I don't want to give away the jokes. And she's like, "Well, he's okay with this other guy." And he's like, "Who's that?" And she's like, "He's my boyfriend." And Chandler's like, "If you're married and have a boyfriend, then what kind of relationship are we gonna have?" And she said, "I guess mostly sexual." And then he's like, and then it cuts back to the gang, and Monica's like, "I'm sorry it didn't work out." He's like, "Didn't work out. I'm seeing her Thursday." So of course Monica and Phoebe are like, "What? This is crazy." And then Ross tries to say it's crazy, and then he's like, "No, actually, it sounds pretty awesome." But then Joey's like, "No, I wouldn't do that." And they're like, "See?" And he's like, "Yeah, if I'm seeing a girl, I've got to know I'm sleeping with more people than she is." So that was kind of funny. And then, yeah. So, yep. That's how that ends, with Joey saying that, and then Ross makes it funny too, I believe. We cut to Monica and Rachel's apartment. The whole gang's there except for Joey. And Rachel would clean the apartment. So, like, everybody comes in and Rachel's in the apartment. She's like, hey, I cleaned. And everybody's like, oh, it looks great. It looks great. Everybody except for Monica. Monica's OCD kicks in and she's like, she don't like that Rachel moved the stool thing. So she puts it back where it was. So they start teasing her about her OCD. And she's like, I'm not OCD. I can be a kook. And they start giving her these scenarios like, what if somebody just threw magazines on the table and they weren't stacked neatly? And she's like, okay. And then Chandler's like, what if I put a glass on your wooden table with no coaster and it's got like condensation on the outside and it's slowly leaking to the table? And then she like goes nuts and she's like, oh my God, what's wrong with me? And Ross is like, your mom. And she's like, oh. And then Joey comes in and he's on the phone and he's like excited and he hangs up and he's like, that's my agent. I'm in the new Al Pacino movie. And they keep wanting to know what part. And he keeps saying lines from Al Pacino movies and they're like, what's the part? And he doesn't want to say. And then finally when he says, he's like, Al Pacino's butt. And they're like, what? And he's like, I'm playing Al Pacino's butt. So then Ross and Chandler make some very funny jokes about him playing Al Pacino's butt. Definitely funny scenes. And then we stay in Monica's apartment, and Joey, this is the next day, Joey shows up at Monica's apartment, and he's knocking on the door. Monica answers, and he's like, I want moisturizer in my audition, or I'm shooting the scene today, implying he needs moisturizer for his butt. And she's like, go in the bathroom, never tell me what you did in there. Chandler comes in, and he's got the phone. It's for Joey. And Monica's like, he's in the bathroom. You probably don't want to go in there. And Chandler's like, we're roommates. I've seen it all. And he opens the door and he freaks out and gives Joey the phone. And when he freaked out, he yelled. So it woke up Rachel. She comes out. Well, he's getting stuff out of Monica's fridge for breakfast for Aurora. So she's like, oh, you got the whole night. And he's like, yeah. And he's telling her how awesome it is. Like, since she's got a husband and a boyfriend, it's like he gets to do all the fun stuff with her and stuff. So he's just really talking about how awesome it is. So he's getting the breakfast stuff and like cookware from Monica, and she's like trying not to be OCD. So she's like, now I would tell you to do this and this so stuff don't stick to the pan, but I'm not gonna do that. So she's trying not to be OCD, but it is not working. So then we cut to Joey on the set. And they're getting ready to shoot the scene, so they tell him to lose the robe and get in the shower. So he does. So then they'll say action and then they'll say cut, and they do this a couple times. And he's like clenching and stuff. He's doing too much booty acting. So then we go from that, which is a very funny scene, to Chandler's apartment. In the bedroom, he's cuddling with Aurora and being all lovey-dovey, and then she's got to go. And he's like, so, what, you got to go see your husband? She's like, no. He's like, so-and-so, the boyfriend? She's like, no, actually, it's Andrew or something. So now she has another boyfriend. So this gets Chandler to where he's like, he just can't be in a foursome of guys seeing the same girl, and he wants her to drop all the other guys and be with him. She don't want to do it. And then so he can't handle it. So they got to break up. But they keep it funny. There's some funny stuff in there. So he has to end it with Aurora. Even though he's like, I know I'll regret this. But, he has to. So then we cut back to Monica's apartment. The whole gang's there except for Joey. And Ross is telling Chandler he did the right thing. But as he's telling him that, he's like, now why'd you do this again? Because even repeating it is like, you got to do all the fun stuff. But, just to keep it funny. Of course, they understand why he did it. So while Ross is doing that, Joey comes in, and he has to tell him he's been fired from playing Al Pacino's butt. He is no longer Al Pacino's butt. And he's bummed about it, and they're like, nobody's going to know. He's like, my mom will. And then Chandler makes a joke about that. And, of course, the gang's trying to tell him, hey, this wasn't your one and only shot, You'd know if it was, and this wasn't, and one day you're going to be famous, and somebody's going to be like, I'm going to play Joey Tribbiani's butt. So, they make him feel better. So Monica gets up to go to bed, and everybody's and their shoes are on the floor in the living room, and they're like, "Hey, Monica, you just gonna leave your shoes there?" She's like, "Yeah, I'll get them tomorrow." Trying not to be LCD. And they're like, "Ooh, she is a kook," And so she goes to bed, and it ends. And then the credit scene is Monica wide awake, thinking about those shoes on the floor, and she's like, "I know I can get them, bring them in here, and then wake up before everybody else and put them back out there so they won't know I got them." And she's just freaking out, and then she's like, "Oh my God," and rolls over. And that's how this episode ends. So that is season 1, episode 6, The One with the Butt. Very funny episode. Definitely one of the better episodes of season 1. I'd say a lot of funnies, a lot of jokes. Get to see Joey do his acting thing. Get to see Chandler be awkward with girls and stuff, and yeah, Monica's OCD. You get to see that it's pretty serious. So yeah, I mean a lot of good jokes in this episode. Definitely one of my faves of season 1. Definitely, probably my favorite one so far. There's just a lot of good stuff in this one. So yeah, thanks for joining me again. I'll be back tomorrow with episode 6. Please remember to like, share, and comment, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you.